What is going on, everybody? BobbyFi with my man Eric Sheetshaber. We're going to be talking through the little NBA slate tonight. Actually, a nice little 5-game slate with a lot of different ways I think you can go. That I think it's going to be easy to get different. Really glad I came on and did the shows last night in spite of not being my best self, because it made me some money, and it sounds like hopefully it made some people in the chat, most importantly, some money as well. And I did try to say I had some pretty strong takes, and I wasn't feeling so up to it. So I was more adamant about what I was doing, and I wasn't doing much. But mostly everything worked out really nicely for me. So I had a nice night, and I'm ready to get back after today. Sheets, how did you do? And what do you think of the slate?
I did okay in the NBA. I did really, really well in the NFL, but the NBA I did well. But I'd like to talk about this a little bit. So first of all, again, I just can't emphasize this enough, like how important it is to be on the live stream. Because even like, for example, even sometimes if Bobby's not even going to play, sometimes you could argue that if you're not playing, your takes should be a little even more important. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you can be a lot much more confident about it. You know what I mean? And then whatever. But yeah, we talked through a lot of stuff, and so from an advice perspective, I do recommend everybody get onto that live stream. The other thing is, remember, I talked about this yesterday, about projections and things like that. Whenever there's a guy who's a good point per dollar play, that's the first thing I always ask Bobby is this one of those point per dollar plays that you're supposed to fade, or is it one that's just kind of like a lock? And there's such an important difference between those types of plays, and not to say that Devante Green wasn't a good play. He put out, he was a good point per dollar play based on median projections, which are important. But again, when you're trying to win a GPP, you have to look at these different classes of players a little differently. And Bobby pointed out several times, both in the early look and the live thing, that he's just the kind of player that could put in 35 minutes and get 5 fantasy points. I mean, he was exaggerating, but that's exactly the type of player that you want to fade in GPPs, as opposed to, for example, like Enes Kanter or Enes Freedom, mm-hmm. He's just a guy that, even though he had a slow start, he was just never not going to get there, mm-hmm. And that's the type of thing where you can't just just say, okay, let's look at Sheets' projections or RotoGrinders' projection or anybody's projections, run optimals and put stuff in. There's context to these guys, and these guys have different ranges of outcomes, and that's why you have to get into our deeper analysis. And mm-hmm. I think last night was just literally a perfect example of that.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I'm looking back. I mean, there was a lot of things, and my whole thing about waiting for Paul George, the thing is, partly why I made it so easy, and even though it didn't work out because he ended up playing, it didn't really matter though, because you had all of the Kings you could play, mm-hmm. and the Kings all did their thing. So you play all the Kings, and then if Paul George is out, you rotate in a couple Clippers, and that was the way to go. And I just think that strategy wise, it was the right angle last night. And I almost wish I played more, but at the same time, if I did, I might have talked myself into some things I didn't want to do. So happy with a good night, and let's move on to tonight. Yep. All right, let's talk through this first game.
Oh, let me share my screen.
Oh yeah, let's put your screen up. Sorry, guys. I apologize for anything. I'm still I've got a pretty nasty sinus infection. It's not COVID. I'm tested. I'm good, but I'm definitely not. I don't wish it was COVID.
It's okay. I'm pretty sure that as contagious as it is, I'm not going to contract it over Zoom.
So yeah, that goes for the rest of everybody else watching as well.
I think we're good.
Yeah. This game, it's weird. Like I really am having a hard time finding anything to do on the Indiana side. I think O'Shea Brissett is like, it's a value play that by the end of the day, we probably won't really be thinking about very much. And I would say it's one of those value plays that you could easily do without. So I would generally flood that way. I mean, we may find out guys are out later today. And then on the Miami side, I don't know what to do on DraftKings. I still think playing Kyle Lowry is the right thing to do here. I guess, even with Hero on FanDuel at 78, it's still reasonable enough priced. I just feel like he's always or almost always in this kind of a matchup between like 40 and 60 at home. 60 seems like a lot, but maybe 40 to 50 still feels like maybe do we even need it? I don't know. You've got the Yurt 7 thing, who's going to get some minutes. I think that's kind of an interesting tournament play, but he's going to have some ownership. Maybe not a bad spot to play a very low-owned Duncan Robinson against a sort of sloppy, maybe he won't be as low owned as I think, but a sort of sloppy indie team. And this is the spot where, like I remember I said it before, and sometimes it's just coincidence with him, is you don't know the nights he's going to get really hot. But the night he put up, 33, and then he put up 39 a few nights later, it's like those nights he was like 2% owned, where the game surrounding those, he was like 40% owned, and there really wasn't much of a difference. So as of right now, this is the least interesting game to me. I do think Yurt 7 is in play. I think Dedmon's in play. I think Robinson's in play. And I think that Lowry's in play, especially on FanDuel. But I don't know that I need to do anything with this game at first look. How about you?
Yeah, so the thing with Miami is a lot of it always, has been depending on how many active players they have and who plays and things like that. And Hero being out is going to, if he's out, is going to, put these other guys in the discussion. Now, DraftKings has done an okay job with actually pricing them up a little bit, so it's not as if Hero's out, you can just jam in all the Strus, Vincent, and God knows what, you know what I mean? So that's one thing to keep an eye on. But aside from that, the only guy who I looked into, both numbers wise and kind of drill down wise, that you brought up was the Omer, the Yurt 7. He's going to project to be, a good backup center type guy. He's currently, I have him as the second top point per dollar play on the slate, with a modest 22-minute minutes projection as well. So he's certainly someone to keep an eye on, and he's going to garner ownership, like you said. But aside from him, I'm with you. I mean, nobody really pops for me in this game. So it's either Omar or nothing, as far as I'm concerned in this game. Unless, of course, if Hero's out, I'll have to rerun everything and whatever. But I actually think that even if Hero's out, it's not going to be one of those days where you just have to cram in all the Miami guys because there are just better options elsewhere.
Right. It might actually force some over cramming of those guys, like the Duncan Robinson might get a bunch more extra ownership, which is not really, it matters, but it doesn't really matter so much. You know what I mean, for him?
Yep.
All right, let's move along to Detroit and New York. What do you think about this one? What are you looking at? Because another one that's not all that inspiring for me.
Well, it is, with respect to the fact that the Knicks guards are just decimated, right? So all these guys are out with Quickly and even the McBride or whatever it is, and even Rose is questionable in this game. I have to say that even though it was a Saturday, we're kind of, I don't say we're kind of bad, but how do we not notice? I mean, they announced that Kemba was basically going to be forced to play on Saturday because everybody else was out, and he was going back to freaking Boston. I mean, I was supposed to kind of.
Oh, I would have been. I don't want to say. Oh, I would have been all over Kemba when the coach says he's going to be a part of the rotation.
Yeah.
I would have been all over it at that moment, and then going back to Boston, all that stuff.
And going back to Boston,
yeah.
which was Saturday.
Of it, yep.
So I missed that. That's okay. But I think Derrick Rose, boy, oh boy, at 7,200, it seems to be a rough price. This is one team that is significantly cheaper on FanDuel between Randall, Burks, and Rose. They all look really, really cheap. And if Rose is out, Burks is going to be kind of a rough fade over there. But we have to look into the Kemba. And if he's legitimately going to be a part of the rotation, I guess you're going to have to consider it. So that's the thing on the Knicks side. Pistons not as earth-shattering. If you wanted to play a bunch of Knicks, I guess you'd want to try to run it back. So maybe Cade or Bay or Isaiah Stewart. And Isaiah Stewart on FanDuel is also a pretty good play also. Mm-hmm. So again, watch the Rose news. And that's it.
Yeah, I'm really having trouble what to do because I actually think that one plus of these Pistons are going to get there. Okay. I'm having a hard time figuring out who. I've been a big Saddiq Bey guy forever. Like I really like it. Well, not forever, for the last couple of years since he's come in the league.
Yeah.
I really like his game. It is hard to maybe like at first glance see him at 6'5" and go, oh my God, that seems like a lot to pay. But his last 3 games, 50, 38, and 35.5, like the median in the current situation without Jeremy Grant is pretty damn high, So I actually think Saddiq Bey as a reachy play is actually really viable. He can rebound and he can shoot. He can put up points. I think he's an interesting tournament play. And I think he's like, I don't know how you don't play him on. I mean, my first look is I don't know how I'm not going to play him on FanDuel. I don't see it really being a viable option for me not to have him in my main build.
Who?
Saddiq Bey.
Okay.
He's 5,200 over there.
Okay.
and already I refreshed my projections, and I know it's early in the day, but like his ownership, I had him at 2.7% owned. Now I've got him at 9% owned. So like I've been on DraftKings, like people are probably, you know.
On Sadiq Bey, I have him projected at 30.
30 on DraftKings?
No, on FanDuel.
Oh, on FanDuel, yeah, 100%. It might even be higher than that.
Yeah.
The ones that get weird with the problem is they're all such similar-ish things. If they keep starting Diallo, I always like his point per minute ability. You get some minutes from Saban Lee off the bench that get in the way, Corey Joseph back, and Frank Jackson. There's just so many bodies, but then there's no Josh Jackson. So it's a mess. And I'm just going to say I'll do my best at 6:30 to have a better feel for this one.
Yeah, I have Sadiq Bey as one of the top point per dollar plays on FanDuel, like you said. And I have it 30% owned. The highest owned guy probably for me right now on the slate. Actually, both of them are coming from the Knicks on FanDuel. I have early looks are Randall at like 40% and Burks at like 50.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that seems to be the case. It seems to be what's going to happen. What do you think of Kemba Walker? You know what I mean?
I think Kemba and Fournier are both. I don't think you want to play. I know that they both went off in the last game. I don't know how much of them I'll have together, but I think they're both really solid plays, and I would take shots on either of them. I also think Isaiah Stewart is viable. I'm going to have to wait to see on this one, because if for any reason Derrick Rose is out, then you really kind of have to play some of these guys, and maybe including spending $7,600 on Alec Burks, which sounds crazy, but I actually think it's viable with the rotation being the way that it is. But Fournier, I mean, we shouldn't overlook his 48 fantasy point game the other night. Everybody's got the same thing about Fournier. Oh, well, you know, the only way he can do it is if he makes all the threes. Well, that's true when he's not a focal point of the offense. When you lose all the other active offensive players, then he's going to have to be. And you see it come through in the last two games, 29 and 48 for him, and he's 5,200. I mean, I'm happy to go there as much as I am with the Kemba situation, but I need to know about Rose, because if Rose is even limited or anything, I mean, these guys are going to have to. This is a team with like 19 guards that doesn't have any guards available, basically. So we should play the ones they do have. But that's one I have to look into later today. I don't think I can do much with it right now, to be honest with you, especially until we go through the whole slate, because I'm still trying to find, do we really need to do all this, or do I need to play all of them? I do think one of Kemba or Fournier are going to be in my main lineups probably. All right, Portland, New Orleans. This is a game I really like. Sheets, what do you think about this one, and what's sort of standing out for you at first?
Yeah, so I like this game a lot. And by the way, here's another little announcement here. I'm going to try my best when I have time to post some more kind of like takes or early looks within the Discord, just, you know, and partially selfishly because it helps me, you know, just to kind of like talk stuff out and type stuff out and things like that, just to give myself an idea of like what I would think of before I even spoke to you and did the early breakdown and stuff. And this was a game, you know, that I really wanted, this and the next one, that I really felt I wanted to target. And unfortunately or fortunately, I don't know, like I didn't realize that Lillard was legit questionable with his hamstring, which is really sucks, you know, because, well, I shouldn't say that, because I'll tell you this, if he plays, I really want to play him. And while having a hamstring is annoying, maybe a Q tag as long as possible could keep his ownership down a little bit. With the idea that if he is going to play, it's because he can play. It's not he's going to like give it a go for 28 minutes. You know what I mean? Because he's been doing better. I mean, he's doing better for me.
Yep.
He's been, you know what I mean? So I'm in there with that. So I do like him. And if he's out, then it's back to Anthony Simons, lock, chalk, and all this stuff. The other guy who had a really, really good game, well, he always seems to have a good game, is Norman Powell. He might have actually had a career high or something like that, or close to it. Well, maybe not, but he had a really good game. He's been playing 40 minutes a night, and it's kind of hard to ignore. Now, if Lillard's out, then yeah, it's going to be Powell. It's going to be, what's his name? It's going to be Simons or whatever. I do kind of hope that Lillard plays, because I do want to play him. And the other guy who I kind of want to play is Nurkic. So I like both those guys, and I think it's a stackable game as well, because I think on the New Orleans side, I think Joval at 8,300 is really, really strong. I think Ingram, who I never play, but I would try him at 8,900. I think this is the game. Well, I mean, we'll talk about the next one in a minute, but I think this game is legit. I want Lillard to play. I don't want it to be a shit show game with all the subs. And I could throw Hart in there also. That's kind of what I'm rooting for, which means it's probably not going to happen.
Right. No, I mean, I like everything you said. I agree with that. I hope Lillard does play because it would be really annoying to have to play like 7 guys from one game.
And Nasir Little and all this crap, it's like,
and even guys who I don't even necessarily mind. I think you're looking at the way I have it broken out, and I'll give I have it Nance, Little, or Covington at first glance. I think Nance is the one I would side with the most. It's close though. I do like Little a little bit, and I think I have Lillard or Powell, and then on the other side, and I would lean Lillard. I mean, they're obviously different prices and everything like that about who I'm going to play most likely. I do like Powell, and I think what he's been doing has been great, and this is a great kind of matchup for his style. And then on the other side, I by the way, even if I know it sounds really, really thin, especially with all the other guys naming all these Portland guys, but if you're going to play a bunch of tournament lineups today, I would encourage you to play at least like a few shares of Ben McLemore. Like there is just a long shot play that's almost he has to go nuts from 3, but he'll take them. He'll take his shots. And if he makes his first 2, he's going to keep shooting. Like literally, that's how it goes with him. I mean, he just made 8 threes 2 games ago.
I see that a couple of games ago. Right?
He has that kind of thing. And if he's going to get minutes at some point, especially against a team that's as sloppy defensively as New Orleans is, there's definitely a chance he could get it going there. I like the Pelican side. I think, again, Joval or Ingram, not together for me, but I would put, then I have Devante Graham or Josh Hart. Devante Graham, people finally have caught on to after I've been getting him at like 4% all year long. But that's how I have these guys rated. And I would give the edge to Graham, very, very close between Graham and Hart. I think maybe I'd give the edge to Hart because of the position eligibility, but they're really close for me. And I don't mind if somebody wants to take a shot on Nickeil Alexander-Walker. As of right now, that's not my plan to do so. And I'm a sucker for this. Herbert Jones is going to start putting up games that we can actually use for fantasy, because I think he's a really good real life player, and he's going to just he might play like 38 minutes when he's projected to play 30, and he's just going to accidentally walk into some 35, 40 fantasy point games like he has been lately. I mean, 2 of his last 5, he's been over 37. So there's a lot to like from this game, but in terms of priorities, again, that's the way I've got it ranked, is with all these guys. I have a little bit Hart over Graham, a little bit Nance over Little and Covington, a little bit Lillard over Powell, even though they're very different prices, and then a little bit Joval over Ingram. That's the way I'm looking at this.
Dude, this is a serious play here. I didn't even realize this guy was getting like a zillion minutes every game, the Herbert Jones.
He's legitimate. Like they really like him, and for good reason. He's a really good player.
Dude, he's 4,200.
I know, and we were fading him at 3K, because he was not doing anything in those minutes. But now he's sort of finding himself a little bit, and especially in like a track meet against a sloppy team where there's going to be blocks and rebounds and things to go around. I think that's a really good spot to use him. But just there's a lot of guys. That's the only thing.
Yeah, but he's 4,200, and like five games of this game log make you kind of happy you played him, and 2 of them are make you ecstatic you played him. I think that's a great play, actually. Yeah,
and he's not going to be. I don't think he's going to be owned much. So I don't think so. Yeah. All right. Do you want to start us off with Minnesota?
Yeah. Speaking of guys who are going to be owned much, so currently, as I mentioned, the top point per dollar play on my board is Jalen Noel at 7.5 points per dollar. I have him at 30% ownership, so he's the guy that I have to ask you about if he's a guy that you have to play or not. Because you have D'Angelo Russell, who's a good play at 7,700 as well. Not to mention Cat at 9,900. And on the other side of this, we're right back to because there's some other things going on with Dallas. You have Kristaps. Well, and not obviously, even he's questionable. Oh my God. So there's Jalen Brunson. Is he going to play? So there's Jalen Brunson. There's Tim Hardaway Jr. There's Kristaps. He's in play. And then if Kristaps is out, we have Kleber out also. So Powell's 3,200. Is Moses Brown or Boban in play? I don't know. This is a crazy game actually, but it certainly seems like with all that value that you could play on Minnesota. Mm-hmm. It seems like this is the second game that I would be targeting, either New Orleans, Portland, or Minnesota, Dallas.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so and again, this is my early way of doing these things. I really think that for the spend ups on the Minnesota side, Russell or Towns, again, you could play them both together. I'm not saying they're impossible, but if you're doing that, you want to get into like a game stacking kind of a mode. And I would rather play one of those guys with potentially two other players here, whether that be Jaden McDaniels and Jalen Noel, or whether it be Naz Reid and Malik Beasley. All of those guys are excellent plays from everything I can see. The thing with Naz Reid is you're counting on less minutes, but potentially much higher production than the other guys. The weird part is Jalen Noel has been doing really well, and he's been only getting the 18 to 20 minutes. I don't think his minutes are as secure as the sites are projecting him to be. So I would bump Naz Reid below him, but I don't think he's this automatic, you have to play him guy. Not Jalen Noel until I really get some more clarity on these minutes, because I don't know for sure that it won't be Jordan McLaughlin for a bunch of minutes. Balmaro will get some minutes. Jake Layman will get some minutes. I don't know that Noel is going to play 30 minutes, and I don't exactly understand fully where that projection is coming from. I understand that it's possible, but I don't think that should be his median average, and that's what I'm looking at right now. Jaden McDaniels.
Yeah, I don't.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Go jump in.
Why isn't he exactly?
I'm trying to figure it out. I really can't. There was some blowouts in there, and maybe he would have played those minutes if that didn't happen. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Jaden McDaniels is the same Jaden McDaniels we get all the time, but every now and then you get a 40 out of him too. Like, I mean, it's sort of a little bit the Herbert Jones type of play, but Herbert Jones, I think maybe that feels weird to say more upside, but I guess he does. But I would rank Noel ahead of Reid right now and McDaniels. And I always am a sucker for taking shots with Malik Beasley. Like, when they're down an extra man, he's another one who he might get you 10. But he might go out there and put up 35, 45. He's got abilities like to put up huge scores, and you can't just be a game log watcher with him. You just got to look at his shots per minute. I mean, they're awesome. So I would love to take shots on Malik Beasley and just sort of hope it works in my favor. I actually think I would want to make him a play I do want to use. So
I have a couple of things about this. So first of all, yeah, I remember we talked about this the other day. I had some pretty good luck with Malik Beasley the other day. Mm-hmm. I'm like kind of looking at, I'm really glad that you did this, because you made me put the projected minutes up into my sheets. And even though it's a little early, and they're not even always going to add, because some sites screw up, whatever, even though we're like 10 minutes short overall, I'm trying to look through where this is coming from. You know where a couple of people are getting minutes? I'm seeing 17 minutes for a guy I've never heard of. I'm seeing 17 minutes for Leandro Balmaro.
Balmaro, yeah.
And then 16 minutes for Jake Layman, 17 minutes for Jordan McLaughlin. And the reason I bring all this up,
it's because Vanderbilt's out along with Edwards.
Right. But the point is that I see I don't know if these are actually the positions they play, but I see Jalen Noel point guard. I see Russell point guard. I see McLaughlin point guard. I see Balmaro point guard. And I don't know about this Jalen Noel 28 minutes. You know what I mean? It just seems as though these other guys can, there are only so many basketballs on the court, and only so many minutes out there. I don't know about this business. So we're gonna have to look at this more, and we'll talk about this later, I guess.
Yeah, no, I think that's going to be the key, and then obviously Kristaps, whether he plays, is going to make this whole game really important, because if Kristaps is out too, I think you will see, like, that's the one thing you're going to get an advantage on by delaying your start time. If Boban for some reason starts,
See you later.
Like, what are we going to do? We've learned enough to realize we kind of have to do that then. But
I actually think they would start Moses Brown.
Well, they've been starting Powell and they've been playing okay, but the difference is if you take Porzingis out, Boban is, as crazy as this sounds, he's probably their third best guy to run offense through, outside of maybe Trey Burke, maybe fourth best guy. But they can run offense through him because he's so much bigger and he's really skilled. So I think he could actually do it. Now, he wouldn't play more than 18 or 20 minutes probably anyway, but that's fine. If he plays 20 minutes, he's going to put up over 20 fantasy points. We just have seen that we've seen him put up 45 in those times. But Trey Burke may end up being the sneaky play in this game that we want to use the most. So I actually think Burke is a really, really great tournament play. If we don't have Kristaps, he's going to be more popular. But I think that even if Kristaps plays, Trey Burke, we've seen him in these spots. Like, he can put up a number. He'll go out there. He'll chuck it. He plays a little bit like a poor man's Jalen Brunson. He's not as effective, but he will, play like a chicken with his head cut off, and just he'll give himself the opportunity to score 40. And he just did it the other night. I mean, he just scored 37 in 22 minutes. I don't see why this should be a game where he couldn't do that as well. So we need to know about Kristaps. But either way, in order: Brunson, then Hardaway, then probably Trey Burke for me, and then Kristaps if he's in.
I have another thing I'd like to say. and we talk about this from time to time about narratives and revenge and all this stuff. And it's easy for people to say, well, if I can't quantify it, it doesn't exist, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, even though I missed this because this was a Sunday, so I guess I just missed this. I see Moses Brown. I look at the game where he got 20 minutes and he got 27 fantasy points. And to me, it's just no accident that it was at Oklahoma City. You know,
it's incredible how often it happens. It's the biggest coincidence of all time, or we're just absolutely logically right. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's ridiculous. So that's the best I could describe that.
Yep.
So, and I do think, by the way, that if Kristaps is out, I think if they start either of these guys, Moses or Boban, I think they're both like really strong. Now, again, I guess they have to start Powell, right? I mean, I don't think that
they might mix it up like they did with Indy the other night. And it threw me off because Indy moved what's his name to the bench because they wanted him to run with the second unit. And they wanted to have somebody, I can't remember who it was defensively, but sometimes teams just change the way they do the rotation. And if Boban is in the starting part of the rotation, it would make sense to do it against Cat a little bit, although Cat would take him outside, which would be a little bit tricky. So I don't know. They probably would start Powell, but if they could start two bigs, that's not out of the question because they could kind of start two bigs in Minnesota already.
Right.
So, anyway. All right, last game of the night. What do you got for me? Phoenix against my really sad positioned Lakers. I have Dwight Howard and wait, hold on. I just want to say one thing though. I got a note that Dwight Howard and Taylor Norton-Tucker were in tonight, and then I look at them on my list, and it's got them both as out.
Yeah, because I have DeAndre Jordan as viable for the Lakers tonight.
They're in now. I got him in now. Sorry.
Oh yeah, maybe they're not. Maybe he's not viable anymore, but maybe he is anyway. I have him a viable, pivot off of Omer if you want to try that. The other thing is that there's one guy who I think is much better on FanDuel than DraftKings. I do have a Booker on FanDuel over there, but aside from that, I really don't have too much. Is this one of those? Look, listen, you're all things Lakers, right? Whisperer. And look, they're facing the defending conference champions.
Yep.
Isn't this the type of game that LeBron would want to, if he's able to do it, right? To have a big game?
Yeah, I think he is. I think he'll be popular, and I think it's for a good reason. His price makes it a little bit less exciting. Because even if he has a really strong LeBron game, you're talking about usually in the 60s, whereas Cat could probably get to 70s easier. I don't know. It's close between those two. But you have a $1,200 price difference. And I think that the ownership is going to reflect that LeBron is going to project really, really well tonight. I like LeBron. I do think that the price is, I wish they would make Westbrook a more appropriate price with LeBron on the court, because it is hard to pay the 10-4 for him, but I could see him having a good game here. I just don't think I could get to that price, that price point. And I understand the Booker thing on FanDuel. I actually think that those guys are even in play on DraftKings. And I'm not going to play DeAndre Ayton. If there was no Dwight Howard tonight, I actually would play DeAndre Ayton. But Dwight Howard is still a very capable, big body, good defender that DeAndre Ayton is not going to be able to bully around. Whereas DeAndre Jordan at this point of his career is just a guy you can push around whatever you want to.
I mean, by the way, on FanDuel, there's just no reason to play Ayton over Valanciunas.
No, I totally agree with that. And the only guys in this game who would stand out, and maybe it's the wrong slate because we have all these other values that are going to get there at some point. My highest level of interest would be the Jay Crowder and Mikal Bridges, but I don't think I'm going to play either of those guys. So that's where I'm at on this one. I don't really have a lot of love for it. It's just too bad because it is an island game at the end. We do have late in breaking information. It seems like every day. And if all of a sudden, Chris Paul's out or something weird like that happens, I doubt he would be out for this game. But it's just, something could open up here and you could end up getting a gold mine, because it should be a good pace game with a lot of action. And it's a great matchup for Phoenix. But I think it's probably one I'm going to sit by the wayside a little bit on.
What is the spread on this game?
7 Phoenix.
Oh yeah. By the way, we had a good recommendation yesterday against the spread. The Oklahoma City.
You nailed that one.
Yeah, the Oklahoma City. That made a lot of sense. And yeah, might as well. Do you like any of the games today?
The games that stand out to me the most would be, I think that Portland, I don't know what's happened. I just saw that Portland's line dropped a little bit and Damian Lillard is still questionable. Oh. That makes me a little nervous about him playing.
Yeah.
They're now 2-point underdogs instead of a half a point underdog. So I would just watch out for that trend, I would say. And I think Minnesota is going to beat the hell out of Dallas. Not beat the hell out of them, but win that game, and they're underdogs. So I just say Minnesota money line would be my initial favorite bet. All the other ones I feel a little messy about. Maybe the Knicks over the cover 7 over Detroit would be the next one.
Yeah, I don't have much of a lean. If I had to lean somewhere, it would probably. I mean, not really much. I'd throw a sprinkle maybe on the Lakers plus the points.
Yeah, I think that's good. I think it's a good bet too. That would be my next one. All right, you ready to do some football?
Yep.
All right. Good luck, everybody, tonight, and hopefully we crush it. And we will be with you live at 6:30, right, Sheets?
Yeah, maybe we go earlier just because the football game's at 7.
Okay, so we can whatever you want. Somewhere between 6 and 6:30. We'll let you guys know.
Okay.
All right. Good luck, everybody.